And please tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I would love to interact with you legends. Now to the story.
I don't even know where to start with this one. Maybe with the fact that I walked home that night feeling like I'd been robbed and tricked in the dumbest way possible, but also in a way that still makes me check my wallet every time I leave the house. Like I can still picture the exact moment everything shifted, the little detail I missed, the thing I should have caught right in front of me. We matched on an app that wasn't even Tinder, just one of those off-brand dating apps that no one admits to using but still ends up on when they're bored at midnight. His pictures were normal enough. Hoodie cap, slight smile, nothing flashy. He looked like the kind of guy who never posts but got convinced to buy a friend. That seemed safer than the guys with too many mirror selfies. We set up dinner at this cheap Italian spot tucked in the corner of a shopping strip. It wasn't fancy plastic menus, loud music, and the smell of garlic clinging to everything. I didn't think much of it. Honestly, I thought it was better that way. A place where you couldn't fake too much. The date itself was fine. Not great, not horrible, just fine. He wasn't awkward, he wasn't rude, he wasn't overly flirty. Just this neutral guy who asked questions but never said much about himself. The kind of person who doesn't give you a red flag but also doesn't give you a green one either. I remember thinking I'd probably forget about him in a week. But then came the moment, the one that's burned into my head now. The bill landed on the table. He offered to split, I agreed. We both reached for our wallets at the same time. I noticed his was black leather, just like mine. Same shape, same size. We laughed about it like, oh wow, what are the odds? But then I slid mine across for the waiter to run my card. This is where I screwed up. Because when the waiter came back, he placed the wallet on the table without looking. We were still chatting. I wasn't paying attention, and I just grabbed it, shoved it in my bag, and didn't think twice. We left, said the awkward goodbye in the parking lot, and I went home. That was it. Or so I thought. The first sign something was off hit the next morning. My phone buzzed with a fraud alert. At first, I thought it was spam. But then more notifications came in. Charges back to back. Gas stations, online orders, some weird late-night food deliveries. All maxing out my card in less than 12 hours. I tore through my bag and pulled out the wallet. That's when my stomach dropped. It wasn't mine. It looked the same, sure, but inside was a completely different set of cards and a photo ID that wasn't me. I can still see his face on that driver's license, grinning like he knew this was gonna happen all along. He didn't just take my money. He took my whole wallet, my ID, everything. I sat on the floor, flipping through it in shock, realizing how smooth it all was, like he'd probably done it before. Same wallet design, wait for the right moment, switch them when no one notices. And me. I walked away smiling like an idiot. What freaked me out the most wasn't just the money being drained. It was the fact that he now had my license, my full name, my address, all in his pocket, while I sat there clutching his, useless in my hands. I called the bank, canceled everything, went through the motions of reporting it. But all I could think about was how he planned it. The way he stayed quiet through dinner, like he was just waiting for that moment at the end. He never cared about the date. The whole night was just a setup to get close enough to pull off that spot. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside felt like it could have been him pulling up, walking my door with my ID in his hand like proof he owned part of me now. I kept checking the street through the blinds, half expecting to see him leaning against a car, waiting. The police barely cared. Cancel your cards, get a new license, don't contact him again. That was it. Just routine for them, but my head wouldn't stop running through the details. Did he choose me because my profile made me look easy to distract? Did he have a stack of wallets at home, all stolen the same way? Was I just one name on his list? Days passed and new charges still tried to slip through, like he was squeezing every drop he could before the bank caught up. Online subscriptions, random purchases, stuff that made me picture him laughing while clicking buy now with my name typed out. The thing that gnaws at me the most is how close I came to not noticing it all. If the fraud alert hadn't gone off, I probably wouldn't have checked until way later. By then, who knows what he could have done with my info. Maybe he already has. Sometimes I wonder if somewhere my details are being sold, if someone else is scrolling through my name like it's up for grabs. Now, whenever I think about dating apps, it's not even the creepy guys or the weird messages that bother me. It's the idea that the person across from you might not even be on the date for the same reason you are. That while you're wondering if there's chemistry, they're wondering if you'll notice when they take something from you. I still keep his wallet. I don't know why. Maybe because throwing it away feels like letting him win, or maybe because it's proof. Proof that I didn't make it up, that he really sat there with me in that cheap Italian place, already knowing how the night would end. Every time I open my drawer and see it, I feel that same wave of unease, like he's still connected to me through it somehow. It's a reminder of how easy it was for him to get under my guard, how quick it can all fall apart over a plate of pasta and a stupid laugh about matching wallets. And the worst part, sometimes I think about how casual he was, how smooth, and I realize that probably wasn't his first time, and I doubt it'll be his last. I'll be real with you, this story still makes me check my front door 3 times before I go to sleep. It started off like one of those nothing special dates you don't expect much from, and ended with me staring at an empty shelf where my favorite stuff used to be. So the setup. I've matched with this girl on a dating app, one of those ones you download when you're bored at 2 a.m. scrolling in bed. Her pictures were regular, nothing crazy, just a couple selfies, one at a festival, one with some dog I don't even think was hers. She wasn't throwing out the fake model vibes, and honestly, I wasn't expecting a lot. We agreed to meet for drinks at a small bar near my place. Not some fancy spot, just one of those quiet pubs with sticky floors, bad lighting, and music from the jukebox playing way too loud. She showed up in an oversized jacket, hair kind of messy, but in a way that looked like she meant it to be. She wasn't awkward, she wasn't talkative either, just somewhere in the middle, like she knew exactly how to keep the conversation moving without ever really saying much about herself. The date was fine. That's the only word I've got for it. She laughed at my dumb jokes, asked me a few questions, nodded a lot, and didn't check her phone once. If you'd asked me right then, I would have said, yeah, I'm okay, maybe I'd see her again. Here's where it got weird. It was late, the bar was closing, and she said she didn't feel like heading home yet. I lived 5 minutes away, so I said she could chill at my place for a bit. At the time, I didn't think twice about it. She seemed tired more than anything, and I wasn't planning anything besides throwing on Netflix. She came in, looked around, and sat on my couch like she'd been there before. I grabbed a couple waters from the fridge. We watched half an episode of some random show, and then she said she was exhausted. I figured she'd call a cab or book an Uber, but instead she curled up on the couch. I remember thinking, whatever, it's not worth making a big deal out of. She'll leave in the morning. I crashed in my room and didn't hear a thing all night. No doors opening, no drawers closing, nothing. When I woke up, sunlight was creeping in through the blinds, and my first thought was that I should check if she was still there. I stepped out into the living room. The couch was empty. The blanket I'd tossed her was folded neatly. It was almost too neat, like staged. That's when I noticed the shelf by my TV. My sneakers weren't there. The ones I'd saved up months for, lined up like trophies. Gone. I looked over at the coffee table where I left my headphones after gaming the night before. Empty. My wrist felt light too. My watch, the one I always put on the nightstand, wasn't there either. At first, I thought maybe I moved them. Maybe I'd thrown my sneakers in the closet without thinking. But after tearing through every corner of my apartment, I knew she'd taken them. Slipped out sometime before dawn, carrying my stuff like it was hers all along. It hit me in waves. First confusion, then anger, then that sinking realization that I let it happen. I let a stranger into my space, let her crash like it was no big deal, and woke up with hundreds of dollars worth of my favorite things gone. The thing that bothers me most is how quiet she was. She didn't just grab random stuff. She picked things she knew I'd noticed missing. Not the TV, not my wallet, not anything that would make it obvious right away. She took the things that felt personal. My sneakers that I bathed, my headphones I used every day, my watch I wore on every date. It was like she studied the room and picked out the exact pieces that would hit hardest. I called the bar later, asked if they had cameras outside. They said no. My apartment building doesn't have them either. It's like she slipped through the night completely invisible. No trace left except for the empty spaces on my shelves. I thought about messaging her on the app, but when I opened it, her profile was gone. Deleted, like she vanished into thin air the moment she walked out my door. I searched her name, her number, everything. Nothing came up. She didn't exist anymore. The whole day after, I kept replaying little details in my head. The way she kept glancing around my living room when she first walked in. The way she folded that blanket like she wanted it to look polite, not suspicious. The way she never gave me a single detail about her life the whole night. I realized she wasn't there for the date. She wasn't there for me. She was there for the stuff. Now I can't even leave my sneakers by the door. Everything valuable stays hidden, tucked away like I'm preparing for another stranger to stroll through. And the worst part, it worked. She got away with it. Smooth, easy, like it was routine for her. Every time I see someone post about a first date disaster online, I think about mine. Not because it was awkward or embarrassing, but because it feels like I got played the oldest trick in the book. Invite her in, let her get comfortable, wake up, and realize she was never planning on staying. Just planning on leaving with more than she came with. And I still can't shake the image of that folded blanket, sitting there on the couch like some fake thank you note. Like she wanted me to see it first, to think she'd been polite before noticing the empty spaces that actually mattered. That's what sticks. Not her face, not the date, not the dumb bar music. Just that folded blanket mocking me every time I think about it. I didn't even want to go on the date in the first place. That's what keeps running through my head. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't even into the guy like that, but my friends hyped me up and told me I needed to get out of the house. Now, when I think about it, I feel like I was being pushed straight into the middle of some twisted game I didn't even know was happening. The guy's name doesn't even matter anymore, but he showed up on my screen one night when I was scrolling half asleep. His pictures were clean, nothing flashy. One in front of a mirror, one at some football match, one just sitting on a bench like he didn't care. His bio had one sentence about liking chill nights in and random drives. It was boring, but in a safe way. We matched, chatted a bit, and he asked if I wanted to grab food. I said yes because, honestly, I was tired of sitting around watching my friends date people and tell stories while I had nothing to add. That's how I justified it. It wasn't about him. It was about not being the boring one in the group. We went to a diner a few streets over from where I lived. The kind of place that smells like grease no matter what you order. He was already there when I arrived, leaning back in the booth like he owned it. He smiled when I sat down, and I thought, okay, maybe this won't be so bad. The date was average. We ate, talked about school, work, random stuff. He kept the questions bouncing, but never said much about himself. At the time, I figured maybe he was shy or just didn't like talking too much. He wasn't creepy, he wasn't rude. Just this middle ground kind of guy who could fade into the background if you let him. By the end, he offered to walk me home since it was dark. I let him. It wasn't romantic, just two people walking silently past closed shops and flickering streetlights. When I got inside, I sat on my bed and thought, well, that's over. I didn't text him back after that night. Didn't block him, just didn't reply. I figured it was done. Then a week later, everything flipped. I was scrolling on Instagram, half awake in the morning when I saw it. My best friend, someone I've known since middle school, had posted a story. It was a picture of her holding someone's hand across a table, drinks between them, with the caption, "My person." I didn't even notice the hand at first. I was about to swipe past, until I saw the ring on his finger. The same silver band the guy from my date wore. I stared at my phone like it was lying to me. There was no way. I clicked her profile, and the next post hit harder. A picture of the two of them together, smiling like they'd known each other forever, with official in the caption and a bunch of heart emojis. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I was gonna throw up. My best friend, the girl I tell everything to, was suddenly in a relationship with the same guy I'd gone on a date with 7 days earlier, and she didn't even mention it. I messaged her, asked her about it, and the response came quick. She said she had no idea I'd even gone out with him. That she met him at a cafe a couple days ago, they clicked, and he asked her out. She swore up and down she didn't know. I wanted to believe her, but my head was spinning. I replayed everything. The way he never talked about himself on our date. The way he sat back and just studied me while I talked. The way he asked about my friends, casually slipping questions and like, who do you usually hang out with? At the time, I thought it was normal conversation. Now it felt like he was fishing, trying to connect dots. And he did. Somehow in the week between my date and hers, he found his way into her world. Maybe through socials, maybe by chance, maybe on purpose. I don't even know. But suddenly he wasn't the quiet guy at the diner anymore. He was the smiling boyfriend on her feed, arm around her shoulders, my best friend looking at him like he was perfect. The worst part, I couldn't even say anything without sounding bitter. If I told people what happened, it would sound like jealousy. Like I was mad she got the guy instead of me. No one would care that I sat across from him first, that he studied me like a test before moving on to her. Days went by and I kept seeing their updates. Dates, selfies, matching hoodies. She'd send me snaps of them together, completely unaware of how it felt on my side. Every time I saw his face, I remembered him sitting in that booth with me, nodding along, waiting for the chance to move past me. I didn't know what was worse, the thought that my best friend might have known and done it anyway, or the thought that she really didn't know, and he was just that calculated. Either way, I was stuck watching it unfold from the outside, hearing a secret that felt heavier every time I saw them together. I'd never told her the full story. I wanted to, but I couldn't bring myself to. I didn't want to risk losing her over some guy who didn't even matter to me. But the truth eats at me. Every time she posts him, every time she gushes about how sweet he is, I hear my own memory of him asking me what kind of music I liked or what schools my friends went to. He wasn't trying to know me. He was mapping his way to her. And maybe that's why it feels so disturbing now, because that wasn't just a bad first date. I was a step, a bridge he used to get to where he wanted to be. And I can't tell if she was a target all along, or if he just swapped us out the second he saw a better option. All I know is that 1 week after I sat across from him at a greasy diner, I was watching him smile in photos with the one person I trusted the most. And she still doesn't understand why I went quiet for a while after that. I've had some bad dates, but this one wasn't just bad. It was humiliating in a way I didn't even know was possible. Like you ever sit across from someone and realize mid-date that you were never the point of being there. That's exactly what happened, and I still feel sick when I replay it. So I met this girl through Instagram. She slid into my DMs after I commented on a local show lineup. Nothing wild, just casual small talk at first. She asked if I wanted to grab food sometime, and I figured why not. She looked cool enough in her pictures, bright hair, edgy clothes, the type that spends too much on thrift shops, but somehow pulls it off. We agreed on a small cafe downtown. Not some chain, but one of those artsy ones where the chairs don't match, the walls are covered in posters for open mic nights, and the barista acts like your order is ruining his life. I got there early, grabbed a table, and waited. She came in a little late, sat down across from me, and instantly had this huge grin on her face. At first, I thought she was just happy to see me. Wrong. Within 2 minutes, she mentioned one of my friends. Not just any friend. This guy I'd known since high school who happens to make music. He's got a little following, nothing crazy, but enough to have people recognize his name online. I post him sometimes, support his stuff, and yeah, we're tight. The moment she realized that, her entire vibe changed. She leaned in closer, asked a million questions, wanted to know how long we'd been friends, if he was chill in person, if he really wrote all his own lyrics. I tried to answer at first, thinking she was just curious. But then she pulled out her phone. Right in front of me, she searched him up on Instagram. I sat there mid-bite of my sandwich while she hit follow on his profile. Not only that, she started typing out a DM. Like, not even trying to hide it. Thumbs moving, eyes locked on the screen, giggling to herself as she sent something. I asked what she was doing and she didn't even look up. Just muttered something about shooting her shot. It was like I wasn't eating at the table anymore. I might as well have been the waiter bringing her napkins. The whole rest of the date was her glued to her phone, refreshing his page, checking if he saw the message, scrolling through his posts, asking me random questions like, where was this taken? Or do you think he's into girls like me? She kept pushing her phone toward me like I was supposed to help her draft messages. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there like an idiot, realizing she never wanted to meet me at all. I was just a stepping stone to someone she actually cared about. She even pulled up an old group photo I had on my page, zoomed in on him, and started analyzing it like she was solving a crime. She asked me what studio he records at, if he's single, if he's the type to reply fast. The way she was staring at the screen, you'd think I wasn't even breathing across from her. I've never felt more invisible. The food got cold. The conversation died, and she just kept typing away. She even said out loud that the date wasn't a waste because she got his contact now. That sentence burned itself into my brain. Wasn't a waste. Like it was the side quest on her way to the main game. I thought maybe she was joking. Maybe she was being dramatic. But then the check came. She didn't even reach for her wallet. She was too busy stalking his tagged photos. I paid just to get it over with, and she didn't even look up to say thanks. She walked out the door scrolling, laughing at something he posted weeks ago, leaving me standing there in the cafe with the receipt in my hand. On the way home, I kept refreshing my own feed, half expecting to see her posting it already. I didn't, but later that night, my friend texted me. He asked if I knew a girl by her username. My stomach dropped. I said, yeah, why? He told me she'd sent him a bunch of messages, long ones, and then screenshots of her hanging out with me as proof she knew him. She literally used our date as credibility. That's when it fully hit me. The whole thing wasn't about me at all. It was about him. She probably swiped on me just because she recognized his name somewhere, lined up the date to get close, and then used it as leverage to get in his inbox. The next day, she posted a story tagging him in some random song lyric, acting like they were connected. He never responded to her, but she kept posting. She even unfollowed me the same night like I'd served my purpose and she didn't need me anymore. And here's the kicker: I see her around now. At shows, at parties, in circles where she's always hovering, trying to get noticed. She never acknowledges what happened. She acts like we never sat across from each other in that cafe, like I was just some extra in her plan. I don't even care about the date anymore. What gets me is how fast she flipped. 1 second she was laughing at my dumb story about a broken guitar. The next she was fully locked in on her real goal, right in front of me, without even pretending to hide it. That switch was cold. So, yeah, that was my first and last time seeing her. The girl who turned our date into her personal backstage pass audition. I thought the date was going fine until the screening started. Honestly, that's the only way I can sum it up. 1 second I was sitting across from this guy, twirling pasta on my fork, thinking maybe he wasn't so bad. The next second, the whole restaurant turned into a stage for something I never asked to be part of. Let me back up. We met on Bumble, nothing special. He looked normal enough in his photos, plain hoodie, gym selfies, the usual mirror pic. His bio didn't say much, just a couple of emojis and something about liking dogs. He wasn't exactly my type, but he messaged me quickly, and he wasn't creepy or overbearing, which is already a small miracle in the world of dating apps. He asked me out after a day or two of chatting, and since I've liked dragging conversations out for weeks with strangers, I said yes. He picked this Italian restaurant downtown. Not too fancy, not cheap either. It was the kind of place with wooden tables, bottles of wine lining the walls, and dim lighting that made everyone look a little more attractive than they probably were. The candles on the tables gave the whole room a soft glow. It felt like a spot where couples went for their third or fourth date, not their first. I almost wondered if that was his strategy, jump straight to serious dinner date instead of coffee or drinks. He showed up on time, which felt like a good omen. He looked like his photos, maybe even a little better. Taller than I expected, hair actually styled, a clean button down instead of the hoodies from his profile. He smiled a lot when we met at the door, almost too much, but I brushed it off. Eager is better than uninterested, I told myself. The first 20 minutes weren't bad. We talked about sick topics, movies, work, how much he hated cooking. He made a joke about surviving on takeout, and I laughed more than I needed to. The food came, steaming plates of pasta, and I let myself relax. Maybe he wasn't the love of my life, but he was polite, attentive, and didn't seem like a total weirdo. That was enough for a Wednesday night. Then the door slammed. It wasn't just a door closing. It was a bang so loud the walls rattled. Every head in the restaurant turned. I looked up and saw her. A woman barreling through the entrance like she'd been shot out of a cannon. Her hair was messy, her face flushed, and she was clutching her phone like a weapon. Her eyes scanned the room, sharp and frantic, until they landed on us. On him. The moment she saw him, she started screaming. Not talking, not yelling, screaming. Her voice tore through the restaurant like an alarm, shrill and furious. Liar, T-O-W-A-R-D. Fiancé. I froze, pasta hanging from my fork. My date's smile collapsed. The whole restaurant went dead silent except for her voice, echoing against the walls. She stormed straight toward us, every step sharp and heavy. When she reached our table, she slammed her hand down so hard the silverware jumped. She shoved her phone in my face before I could even speak. On the screen was a photo. Him. The same guy sitting across from me, arm wrapped around her shoulders, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. And on her finger, clear as day, a diamond ring. My stomach dropped. I looked at the photo, then at her, then back at him. He didn't say a word. He didn't move. He just sat there with his mouth slightly open, like someone had unplugged him. She shoved him back into the booth when he tried to stand. the table rattling so hard our drinks spilled into the marinara sauce. Gasps rippled through the room. People whispered, pulled out their phones. A waiter holding a tray just froze in the aisle, wide-eyed like he'd wandered into a movie. The woman's voice shook with rage, but not with weakness. She listed dates, receipts, weekends they'd spent together. She said she'd found his messages to me because he left his Bumble account open on their laptop. She named places they'd gone, restaurants he'd taken her to, plans they'd made. She was crying, tears streaking down her cheeks, but she never wavered. I couldn't move. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought I'd pass out. I wanted to leave, but my body wouldn't respond. I was stuck between them, caught in a blast zone. Finally, she turned to me. Her eyes locked on mine, sharp as glass. "You can have him if you want," she spat. "I'm done." And then, with a fury I'll never forget, she yanked the ring off her finger and hurled it at his chest. It bounced off, landing in the middle of the table, right in the marinara sauce. The sight was surreal. That ring gleaming under the candlelight, half submerged in red sauce. People around us gasped again, some even laughed nervously, like the universe itself had scripted the moment. That broke me out of my paralysis. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the floor louder than I meant. My whole body shook as I stood. I couldn't sit there one more second. I walked past them, past the waiters, past a crowd of strangers holding their phones up like they were filming a circus. I didn't look back. When I stepped outside, the cool air hit me like a slap. My hands trembled. My breath came in ragged bursts. I stood on the sidewalk, trying to process the chaos I'd just been dragged into. This wasn't a bad date. This wasn't even a weird date. This was someone else's breakup, someone else's heartbreak, detonating right in front of me. Later that night, my phone buzzed nonstop. Paragraphs of text from him. Excuses. Claims that she was crazy, that they weren't really together, that I'd misunderstood everything. He begged me to give him another chance. I didn't reply. I couldn't, because it was exactly what it looked like. Her face is burned into my memory. The way her voice filled the room, raw and furious. The way the entire restaurant turned into an audience for her pain. And the image I can't shake, the diamond ring sinking into pasta sauce, a symbol of everything rotten underneath his fake smile. That was the first and last day I ever had with him. But I know I'll never walk into that restaurant again without hearing her scream in my head, without seeing her tears, without tasting the metallic bitterness of shock in my mouth. Because some dates don't end with awkward goodbyes or ghosting. Some dates end with the sound of your reality cracking open, and a stranger's scream reminding you just how close you came to stepping into their nightmare. I knew something was off the second she honked outside my house. Not because she was late, not because she looked different than her pictures, but because of the car. It wasn't the kind of car you expect for someone in their 20s. A shiny black BMW, polished to perfection, the kind of car that looks like it just rolled off the dealership lot. Tinted windows, spotless rims, headlights cutting through the dark like knives. My rent for the month probably wouldn't cover half a payment on it. She leaned across the passenger seat, sunglasses still on even though it was nighttime, and yelled for me to get in. Her grin was wide, almost daring me to comment on the ride. I didn't. I just told myself not to overthink it. She told me earlier in the week that she loved driving, that she had her own set of wheels and didn't want me wasting money on an Uber or bus fare. I thought that was cool. Girls rarely insist on picking me up for a first date. It felt bold, confident, almost refreshing. But sliding into that leather seat, I couldn't ignore how wrong it felt. The inside of the car smelled brand new, fresh leather mixed with a faint sting of expensive cologne, not the fruity air freshener I'd expected. The dashboard glowed with more buttons than I knew what to do with. She had the music blasting, one hand draped on the steering wheel like she'd owned the road. Her nails tapped in time with the beat as she hit the gas, weaving through traffic a little too aggressively. We drove to this retro burger joint a couple towns over. Neon lights buzzed outside in pinks and blues, and the parking lot was half empty except for a few pickup trucks and beat-up sedans. The B-Unter looked out of place, gleaming under the buzzing fluorescent lights. I felt out of place too, stepping out of it in my sneakers while she tossed her hair like she was stepping off a runway. Dinner started off okay. She laughed easily, though sometimes it sounded rehearsed, like she practiced it. She told me stories about her job at a retail shop, stories about her friends, stories about trips she wanted to take. It didn't all line up. One minute she was saving up for months to go to Europe. The next she was bragging about a shopping spree she'd just done. But I let slide. First dates are awkward, people exaggerate, I told myself. Still, she kept circling back to the same subject, her car. She talked about how independent it made her feel, how much freedom it gave her, how she worked so hard to get it. She mentioned it so often I started to wonder if she wanted me to believe her more than anything else. Every time her eyes darted toward the window, toward that BMW sitting out there under the neon glow, I felt this little prickle in my gut. Halfway through the meal, while she scrolled her phone between bites of fries, I saw it. I wasn't snooping. It was just there, lit up on the table between us. A text notification. The name on the screen, Aaron. The preview line, where the hell is my car? My stomach dropped like a stone. I told myself maybe it was a joke. Maybe Aaron was her brother, her roommate, someone messing around. But then the phone buzzed again and again. Answer me. This isn't funny. I want it back tonight. Her face didn't change. She just locked her phone quickly, slid it into her bag, and smiled at me like nothing had happened. But now my fries tasted like cardboard. The milkshake I'd been sipping curdled in my stomach. All I could think was, this car isn't hers. Walking back to the lot afterward, my brain buzzed louder than the neon sign above us. I watched her fish the keys from her bag. She tossed them to me for a second while she adjusted her jacket, and that's when I saw it. The keychain. Not a cute charm. Not a dealership tag. A worn-out strip of leather with one word pressed into it. Aaron. My throat went dry. I handed the keys back, trying not to let my hands shake. She didn't notice or pretended not to. She slid into the driver's seat, revved the engine, and grinned at me like we were about to hit the open road for an adventure. Except all I felt was dread. The highway stretched ahead, headlights streaking past us, music blaring so loud I could barely think. My eyes kept darting to her phone in the cup holder, buzzing nonstop. Every notification lit up the name Aaron. Call after call. Message after message. She ignored every single one. She kept talking, her voice raised to compete with the music. How much fun she was having. How we should do this again. How she totally vibed with me. I nodded at the right times, but my mind was somewhere else. I imagined Aaron at home, seething, staring at his phone. Or worse, tracking the car, already on his way. Every headlight that came up behind us in traffic made my chest tighten. Every stoplight felt like a chance for someone to pull up next to us and drag us out. By the time we pulled back into my neighborhood, I was sweating. My palms left damp marks on my jeans. She parked right outside my place, headlights washing over the windows like interrogation lamps. She leaned toward me, all smiles, and asked if I had fun. Her lipstick glistened in the glow of the dashboard. I muttered something, my voice hoarse, and grabbed the door handle. My hand shook so badly I fumbled it at first. I got up fast, closing the door harder than I meant to. Through the windshield, I saw her phone light up one more time. Another text from Aaron. This one colder than the rest. I know where you are. She slammed the car into gear, tires squealing as she peeled away. The BMW vanished down the street, taillights glowing red like embers fading into the dark. I stood there on the curb, heart pounding, staring after her. The night was quiet again, except for the ringing in my ears. I realized then that I hadn't just gone on a weird first date. I'd sat in the middle of someone else's war. I'd been a passenger in a car that didn't belong to her, with a man out there who definitely wasn't finished with her, and who might have thought I was part of it. I never heard from her again. Her profile disappeared a couple days later, wiped clean like she never existed. No messages, no explanations, nothing. But I'll never forget that sinking feeling in my chest, the weight of sitting in leather seats that weren't hers, while her phone buzzed with messages from the rightful owner. And I'll never forget the words on that screen, glowing in the dark like a warning I barely escaped. I know where you are. You ever get that sinking feeling halfway through a date that you're basically just someone's walking wallet? Yeah, that's how mine went. And the wild part is it wasn't even hidden. He didn't even try to be slick about it. It was just this constant, oops, forgot my wallet routine, until I felt like I was being scammed in broad daylight. We matched on Hinge. His profile was normal, which already put him ahead of most guys. No weird bathroom mirror selfies, no pictures of him posing with fish. His prompts were funny enough to make me smirk. Nothing groundbreaking, but harmless. When he asked if I wanted to grab some food and maybe a drink after, I figured why not. At worst, I'd waste an evening. He'd offered to pick me up. When he pulled into my driveway, I wasn't impressed or disappointed. It was just a car. Old, beat up, smelled faintly like stale fries, and one of those gas station air fresheners shaped like a tree. I didn't care. It's not like I expect a chauffeur on a first date. We were headed to a burger spot a couple towns over. I heard good things, the kind of hole-in-the-wall place food bloggers rave about. Inside, it was cozy but a little dingy. Sticky menus, neon signs that buzzed, the faint smell of grease that never quite leaves your clothes. We slid into a booth, ordered burgers, fries, milkshakes, the works. Conversation wasn't bad. He was chatty, maybe a little too proud of the fact that he once almost went viral on TikTok. But fine. I was sipping my shake, starting to feel like maybe the night wouldn't be a total bust when the check came. That's when the act started. He patted his jeans pockets, then his jacket, then his back pockets, frowning in exaggerated confusion. "Oh, no way," he said, shaking his head. "I can't believe this. I totally forgot my wallet." I laughed at first, thinking he was kidding. First date nerves, dumb joke. But then he just sat there, waiting, looking at me like it was obvious what should happen next. So I paid. No big deal, I told myself. Everyone forgets stuff. It's not like a burger and freeze was going to bankrupt me. Maybe he was embarrassed. Maybe he really had just walked out without his wallet. After dinner, he suggested a movie. I hesitated for a second, but said sure. We drove to the theater, parked, and walked up to the counter. He rattled off our tickets, ordered a massive popcorn and 2 drinks like he had it handled, then stepped aside. The cashier stared at me expectantly. He did the same pocket patting performance again. Front pockets, back pockets, dramatic sigh. Oh man, I can't believe I did it again. This time, the line behind us shifted impatiently. People stared. My cheeks burned. What was I supposed to do? Argue with him in front of a crowd? I swiped my card, shoved the receipts into my bag, and followed him into the theater, furious but silent. He acted like nothing was wrong. Talked through the previews about his favorite movies, laughed at his own jokes, shoveled popcorn into his mouth like I hadn't just funded the whole night. The way he slurped his soda made my teeth itch. I barely tasted the movie. I just sat there, chewing my lip, watching him lean back in his seat, all relaxed like he was having the time of his life. Meanwhile, my brain was calculating totals. Burgers, milkshakes, tickets, popcorn, drinks. My stomach knotted tighter every time I added it up. After the credits, he stretched, yawned, and asked if I wanted dessert. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Maybe, stupidly, I thought he offered to cover it somehow. Maybe I thought he'd redeem himself. We ended up at a 24-hour diner, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and laminated menus. He ordered a sundae so big it came in a metal bowl, piled with whipped cream and sprinkles. He tacked on a coffee for good measure. I wasn't even hungry, but I ordered a slice of pie to make it look less pathetic. When the bill came, I didn't wait. I didn't even bother to look at him. I just slid my card out of the check and handed it to the server. Sure enough, when she walked away, he gave me the same sheepish grin and shrugged, and said, "I can't believe I left my wallet again." My hands were shaking as I put my card back into my bag. 3 times in one night. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was a routine. I told myself it was almost over. Just survive the car ride home, then block him forever. But halfway back, he pulled into a gas station. "Hey," he said casually, like he was asking me to pass the salt. "Can I just run in and grab gas money from you real quick, since I forgot my wallet?" Not a question. A statement, like of course I covered his fuel too. I stared at him, exhausted, my brain buzzing with disbelief. My bank app notifications were already piling up in my mind. But I wanted to get home. I wanted out, so I pulled a 20 from my wallet and handed it over without a word. He filled up the tank, hopped back in, and cranked the music. He was humming along, drumming the steering wheel, grinning, like nothing was wrong. When we pulled up to my place, I didn't bother with fake politeness. I didn't thank him for the night. I didn't smile. I just muttered a goodbye, got out, and walked inside without looking back. My whole body sagged with relief when the door shut behind me. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from him. "Thanks for being such a lifesaver tonight. You're amazing. I'll pay you back, promise." Of course, he never did. The thing that sticks with me isn't even money. It's the way he acted like it was normal, like he'd done it before, Like it was just another person in his rotation of oops, forgot my wallet dates. The fake pocket padding, the sigh, the way he waited in silence until I paid, it was too smooth, too practiced. And me. I swiped my card again and again, stuck between embarrassment and disbelief, wondering how I'd ended up financing a stranger's night out. So, yeah, that was my horror story. A first date that cost me dinner, a movie, dessert, and even his gas. And the only thing I got in return was the hollow ping of my bank app, alerting me to every single charge. Not exactly the kind of memory you want from a first date. I showed up to the restaurant and immediately knew something was wrong. You know that gut punch moment when your brain just screams, that's not her. That's exactly what happened. I walked in expecting the girl from the photos, long hair, sharp jawline, kind of artsy vibe. And instead, there was someone waving me over from the corner who looked nothing like what I'd been staring at all week. My first thought was maybe I got catfished, like a totally different person stole those pictures. But then she said my name, grinning like we'd known each other forever. And it hit me. This was her. Just not her I thought it was me. I sat down, trying to play it cool, and the awkwardness was instant. The girl in front of me had short, choppy hair, glasses, Ekin scars, and this nervous smile that kept twitching. Not ugly, just not even close to the person she advertised. She leaned across the table before the waitress even handed us menus and said she had to explain something. That's when she dropped it. She said she doesn't actually post her own photos on dating apps. She uses her sister's because she thinks she's ugly. She said it like it was a totally normal confession, like I just nod and thank her for the honesty. My brain froze. I didn't know where to look. Part of me wanted to stand up and walk out, but another part of me was stuck there, processing. Like, what do you even say when someone admits that? The date dragged on. She talked nonstop about her sister, how guys only swipe on her sister's face, how she borrows the photos because otherwise no one matches her. The way she said borrows made my skin crawl, like her sister's face was just an accessory she pulled out of the closet whenever she wanted attention. Every time she smiled at me, I felt trapped. Not because she was hideous, but because I realized I'd been lured here under false pretenses. I wasn't on a date with the person from the pictures. I was on a date with her, the real her, and she didn't seem embarrassed about it at all. When the food came, she kept pushing me to talk about what I thought of her in person. She asked if she looked better or worse than I imagined. She wanted me to rate her compared to her sister. I wanted to sink into the floor. I kept mumbling vague answers, stabbing at my food to avoid eye contact. It got worse when she pulled out her phone. She scrolled through her sister's Instagram, pointing at photos, asking if I thought her sister was prettier than her. She laughed like it was a joke, but her eyes never left my face. She was studying my reactions, waiting for me to slip up and admit the obvious. The whole time I kept thinking, did her sister even know? Did she know her photos were being used to bait guys into dates? Or was this girl just quietly stealing her life for attention? I barely tasted my food. I was just chewing and nodding, praying for it to be over. She talked about how she'd done this a bunch of times, how some guys didn't care once they met her, how a few even dated her after. She said it proudly, like she was proving a point. When the check came, she didn't reach for her bag. She just stared at me with that twitchy smile, waiting. I paid just to end it faster. My card felt heavy in my hand, like it was punishing me for being stupid enough to sit through this. Walking out of the restaurant, she asked if I wanted to see the car she borrowed from her sister too. My stomach dropped. That word again. Borrowed. I made up some excuse about needing to get up early and walked away without looking back. Later that night, my phone blew up with messages from her. Long paragraphs about how she thought I was nice, how she hoped I could see past the photos thing, how she felt like we had a real connection. Each message made my skin crawl more. I didn't reply. The next day, I checked her profile. Gone. Deleted, like she'd vanished, but her sister's account was still up, still posting selfies to hundreds of likes. I couldn't stop staring at it, wondering how many other guys had fallen into the same trap. The thing that messed me up wasn't just that she lied. It was how normal she acted about it, like this was her routine, like she didn't see anything wrong with building a date on someone else's face, then springing the truth on them once they were already sitting at a table. Not whenever I match with someone, I second-guess it. I stare too long at their photos trying to see if they look borrowed, if the vibe doesn't match. And every time I sit down across from a stranger, I remember that night. The twitchy smile, the endless talk about her sister, the way she casually confessed she never expected anyone to swipe for her face. That was the only time I've ever left a date feeling like I'd stepped into someone else's life by accident. Like I wasn't supposed to be there at all, but she dragged me in anyway, hoping I'd play along. I swear this date started out normal, painfully normal. Dinner, small talk, a couple laughs, the usual awkward pauses. If you'd asked me halfway through, I would have said it was just another forgettable night that I'd never think about again. But then came the end. And the end is why this story is burned into my brain. We matched on Bumble. His profile was fine, not amazing, not creepy. He didn't have shirtless bathroom selfies or pictures of himself holding dead fish. His captions were generic, but at least they weren't red flags. He looked average enough. Normal was fine with me. I wasn't searching for my soulmate, just someone to eat dinner with and maybe have a fun night. He suggested a diner on the edge of town. I didn't mind. It wasn't fancy, but I wasn't in the mood for anything fancy. It was one of those places with neon lights buzzing in the windows, sticky menus that had been wiped down too many times, and boots that squeaked when you slid into them. He showed up in a wrinkled hoodie, sneakers that looked like they'd been through several natural disasters, and this lopsided grin that made him look both harmless and tired. Not impressive, but not terrible either. First impressions weren't deal breakers for me. Dinner itself was fine. He wasn't rude. He wasn't too boring. He told me about his projects, which didn't sound like jobs so much as schemes. Reselling sneakers online, flipping furniture he found on Craigslist, helping his cousin with some moving business. Every time I asked for details, like how much he made or what his schedule was, he'd get vague. Then he'd switch the topic back to me. My job, my apartment, my schedule. At first, I thought he was just curious. Later, I realized it felt like he was taking notes. We split a piece of pie at the end. He made some corny joke about how he was sweet enough already. I smiled politely. Honestly, I was ready to wrap it up. Another average date, nothing to write home about. And he asked if I wanted to walk around. I agreed. Maybe fresh air would end the night on a better note. We strolled down the strip mall sidewalks, past shuttered shops and empty parking lots. The only light came from buzzing street lamps, flickering like bad fluorescent bulbs. The air smelled faintly of fries from a 24-hour drive-thru down the street. He was funny in spots, awkward in others, overall harmless. And then, like dropping a bomb, he asked, "So, could I crash at your place?" I blinked. "You mean tonight?" He shook his head. "Nah, not just tonight. Like maybe a couple weeks, just till I get some stuff sorted." I actually laughed, waiting for the punchline. But his face stayed serious. Dead serious. He explained, if you can call it that he was between apartments. That was the phrase he used, like it was casual, no big deal. Something everyone goes through. He said he'd just bring a couple bags, keep to himself, wouldn't be a bother. He said it like he was asking for a glass of water. The air around me went heavy. The buzzing streetlights suddenly sounded deafening. My brain scrambled to catch up. This wasn't a guy asking to crash because he had too much to drink. This wasn't an emergency. This was a guy who had planned from the start to find someone to stay with, and somehow I'd become the plan. I shook my head. That's not possible. But he didn't back down. He pressed, calmly, like he was negotiating a contract. He said it wouldn't be for long, maybe a week or two. He'd clean up after himself. He'd pay for groceries. He'd even help around the place, like he was applying for a roommate position I'd never posted. His tone wasn't pleading. It was confident, almost rehearsed. That was what chilled me. This wasn't spur-of-the-moment desperation. This was a routine. My chest tightened. I realized he had no backup plan. I was the backup plan. This random girl he just met on Bumble. I cut the night short. I said I needed to go, thanked him for dinner, and headed straight for my car. He didn't argue. But the look he gave me when we said goodbye still makes my stomach twist, like I just ruined some arrangement he thought was guaranteed. I drove home in silence, every red light making my skin itch. When I got inside, my phone lit up with a message. "Thanks for the night. I had a great time." I stared at it, relief washing over me. Maybe I'd been overreacting. Maybe he realized how insane he sounded. Then the next text came. But seriously, think about it. I just need a place to land for a little while. You seem really trustworthy. It could work out perfectly. Paragraphs followed. Promises about how easy he'd make it, how safe I'd feel, how grateful he'd be. I didn't reply. The next morning, another text popped up. Different tone. Not asking anymore. I can bring my stuff over this evening if that works for you. My blood went cold. He wasn't asking. He was planning, like I already agreed. I blocked his number immediately, heart racing. My hands shook as I locked my door twice, checked the peephole, and peered out my blinds. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the paranoia. Every time I left my apartment, I scanned the parking lot. My eyes darted to every pair of sneakers, half expecting to see his beat-up shoes waiting. Every old car idling near the curb made my stomach clench. He never showed, but the feeling lingered. Because here's the truth, he didn't want me. He wanted my space, my stability. A couch, a roof, a free ride. And the scariest part wasn't even the request itself. It was how casual he was about it, how practiced. Like, this was just what he did. Meet someone online, charm them just enough, then slide into their life until it got uncomfortable. That was the first and last time I saw him. But every time I scroll dating apps now, I wonder how many other people are doing the same thing, not looking for dates at all, but looking for a place to crash. You ever sit on a date and slowly realize you're not actually on the date? You're just part of some twisted low performance. Yeah, that's how mine went. And the crazy part is, it wasn't an accident. She planned it. From the second I sat down, I was nothing more than a prop in her game. We matched on Tinder. Her profile wasn't bad. A couple mirror selfies, but not the tacky kind. Bright smile, a few colorful captions that made her seem upbeat. She had this approachable vibe, someone who didn't take herself too seriously. After a few days of back and forth messages, she suggested dinner at this Mexican place downtown. Not a bar, not coffee, but dinner. A real date. I figured that was a good sign. I got there first and grabbed a booth. The place was buzzing, bright lights, loud music, waiters weaving between tables with sizzling fajitas that sent smoke spiraling into the air. The kind of place where margaritas come in glasses so big they look like fish bowls. She showed up 15 minutes late. Not fashionably late, just late. She slid into the booth across from me with this grin that seemed a little too sharp for the situation. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was nervous. First dates are awkward, right? We ordered food, made small talk. It was fine. Not sparks flying, butterflies in the stomach fine, but fine. She laughed at my dumb jokes. I asked about her job, she asked about mine. Normal. Except about 10 minutes in, I noticed her eyes kept darting to the door. Not in an anxious way. Not like she was shy or afraid of being caught out with a Tinder date. More like she was waiting, watching. Every time the door opened, her lips curled into this twitchy almost smile. Then she glanced back at me like nothing had happened. I tried to ignore it. Maybe she was distracted. Maybe she was expecting a friend to show up. But the longer it went on, the more obvious it became. She was waiting for something or someone. And he walked in. A tall guy, broad shoulders, heavy footsteps like he owned the place. The air around him seemed to bend with the weight of his mood. He scanned the restaurant until his eyes landed on us, and then his whole face twisted, jaw clenched, fists tightening at his sides. He stormed over. My stomach dropped. I didn't need an introduction. I didn't need a name. I knew who he was. The ex. He slammed both palms on our table, making the silverware jump. What the hell is this? He barked, eyes locked on her. Diners froze mid-bite, whispers rippling through the room. I sat there, stunned, waiting for her to explain. Waiting for her to panic, to stumble through some excuse, to look guilty or embarrassed. But she didn't. She leaned back in her seat, folded her arms, and smirked. That smug little smirk that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't caught. She wasn't surprised. She was entertained. And that's when it hit me. She'd invited him. She'd invited both of us. My chest tightened as I pieced it together. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't bad timing. She wanted this. She wanted a showdown. and I was the idiot who showed up right on time, ready to play my part. The X glared between us, his voice rising, words sharp and jagged. I couldn't catch everything over the buzz of the restaurant, but it was clear enough. He thought they were still together. That she blindsided him. And meanwhile, she just sat there calm, cool, egging him on with little comments slipped like knives between his sentences. Relax. Don't make a scene. Maybe if you treated me better. Gasoline. She was throwing gasoline on the fire, just to see how high the flames could go. My palms went sweaty. I wanted to get up and leave, but I was frozen. What if he blamed me? What if this turned into a fight right here in the middle of the restaurant? I could already see the headlines. Random guy injured in fajita brawl. The waitress hovered near our booth, torn between stepping in and running for help. Diners leaned on the edges of their seats, forks dangling, eyes glued like it was primetime TV. At one point, the ex slammed his fist down so hard our drinks spilled. A glass tipped over, soaking the menu, sending salsa splattering across the table. And she laughed. Not nervous laughter, not embarrassed laughter, but a sharp, cruel laugh, full-on entertained, like the chaos was a show she'd bought tickets for. That was the moment I realized it. She hadn't just expected him to show up. She'd orchestrated this, told him to come, probably sold it as a chance to talk or work things out. Meanwhile, she'd lied of a date with me at the exact same time, just to twist the knife. I wasn't her date. I was her weapon. When I finally pushed myself up from the booth, my legs felt like cement. I muttered something about leaving, but neither of them looked at me. He was too busy shouting. She was too busy basking in it. I walked out red-faced, heart-pounding, trying not to meet the eyes of the strangers watching my humiliation. The night air hit me like a slap as I stumbled toward my car, adrenaline still buzzing in my veins. By the time I got home, I wanted nothing more than to forget the whole thing, pretend it had never happened. But then my phone buzzed. It was her. Thanks for coming, the message read. The drama was exactly what I needed. Like I'd done her a favor. Like I hadn't just been used, humiliated, reduced to background noise in her twisted little soap opera. I didn't reply. I deleted her number, unmatched her, blocked her on everything. But I couldn't block the image burned into my brain, her leaning back in that booth, arms crossed, eyes glittering with satisfaction as her ex melted down and I sat there like a fool. That wasn't a date. That was a setup. And I'll never forget the sinking, sickening moment I realized I wasn't a guest at her table. I was bait. The worst part of this date wasn't that it was boring. It wasn't that it was awkward. It was that I realized halfway through drinks that I wasn't on a date at all. I was sitting in some weird recruitment pitch for overpriced health shakes I didn't even want to hear about. So here's how it started. I matched with this guy on Bumble. His profile was basic but safe. A couple pictures at the gym, one with a dog, one at some festival. His prompts were short, nothing crazy, just love to travel and looking for someone down to earth. Nothing screamed red flag. He asked if I wanted to grab drinks, and I said sure. I figured it'd be an easy night out. We met at this lounge downtown that was dimly lit, had neon signs on the walls, and loud music that made you lean in just to hear each other. It wasn't romantic, but it wasn't terrible either. At first, he was normal. He asked about my job, my family, my hobbies. He laughed at the right times, made decent eye contact, and didn't come across as creepy. I was sipping my cocktail, thinking maybe this wouldn't be a total waste of time. Then it shifted. About 20 minutes in, he leaned back, reached into his bag, and pulled out this thick stack of brochures. He slid them onto the table like a dealer slapping down cards, and my stomach dropped. Bright colors, bold letters, shiny pictures of protein shakes, and slim tea. Pages and pages of success stories with before and after photos that looked like they'd been stolen off Google. At first, I thought he was joking, like maybe it was some dumb gag to break the ice. But no, he got serious fast. He started flipping through the pages, explaining how these shakes had changed lives, how people were dropping weight, gaining muscle, making money on the side. His voice shifted into this rehearsed tone, like he practiced the speech in the mirror 100 times. I just sat there, frozen, staring at the glossy pictures while my drink sweated on the table. This wasn't a date. This was a business pitch. He kept going, pulling out charts, testimonials, even a price sheet. I swear he had a whole presentation ready. He told me how much I could earn if I joined his team, how it was the perfect side hustle, how I seemed like the type of person who would crush it. He said all this while sipping his beer like it was casual conversation. My chest tightened. I realized he probably didn't even like me. I wasn't a date to him. I was a potential recruit. He wasn't trying to connect with me. He was trying to sell me. Every time I tried to steer the conversation back to something normal, he'd twist it. If I mentioned the gym, he'd talk about how his shakes gave him energy. If I mentioned work, he'd say I could quit if I joined his team. If I mentioned travel, he'd bring up some conference his company hosted in Miami. It was relentless. The worst part, he pulled out his phone and started showing me proof. Screenshots of bank statements, photos of people holding giant checks, videos of some guy in a suit yelling about financial freedom. He held the phone inches from my face while grinning like he was about to change my life. The waitress came by and even she looked uncomfortable seeing the table covered in brochures. I ordered another drink just to have something to do with my hands, but I could feel her eyes flicking between me and a mess of papers like she knew I was trapped. Meanwhile, he got bolder. He started writing down numbers on napkins, calculating how much I could earn in my first month. He said he'd mentor me personally, that we could be partners. The word made my skin crawl. He leaned in close, tapping the paper with his pen, his voice dropping like he was sharing a secret. I sat there nodding, praying the night would end. My head was buzzing from the drinks, the music, and his nonstop monologue about shakes I'd never buy. When the check finally came, he didn't even reach for it. He pushed the brochures into his bag and said I could cover this round since I was investing in my future anyway. My jaw clenched, but I paid just to get out of there faster. As we walked out, he shoved one last brochure into my hand and told me to think it over. I stuffed it in my bag without looking, just wanting to disappear into the night. When I got home, I pulled it out and stared at the cover. A smiling woman in workout clothes holding a giant tub of powder with the words, "Change your life today," splashed across the front. I tore it in half and threw it in the trash. My phone buzzed later with a text from him. Not thank you, now have fun tonight, but a link. A link to sign up for his shake-selling pyramid scheme. I blocked him without replying. The next morning, I found another brochure crumpled at the bottom of my bag like it was mocking me. Bright colors, fake promises, all reminding me of the night I realized I wasn't on a date. I was in a sales pitch. I thought I was just grabbing drinks with someone. That's it. One date, a couple cocktails, maybe a laugh or two, and then back to normal life. I didn't know I was basically signing myself up for a nightmare I'd be stuck untangling for weeks. We matched on Tinder. She looked normal, cute selfies, a picture with a cat, one with some friends at a festival. Nothing stood out as alarming. Her bio was short, just into movies, lawn walks, and tequila. I figured easy enough. We agreed to meet at a small bar near my apartment. She showed up in a leather jacket, loud laugh, the type of person who made herself known the second she walked in the room. Honestly, I thought it was refreshing. She wasn't awkward, she wasn't shy. She just jumped straight into talking like we'd known each other for months. The date itself wasn't bad. We had a couple drinks, swapped random stories, argued over music taste, the usual. There weren't sparks, but there weren't red flags either. By the end, I figured it was just one of those average nights. I didn't expect to see her again, but I didn't regret it. That was mistake number one. The next evening, I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, she was standing there. Same jacket, hair pulled back, but this time she was holding a suitcase. Not a backpack, not an overnight bag, a full suitcase. She smiled like it was the most normal thing in the world, rolled it inside, and said something about how it would be easier this way. I was frozen. I didn't even know what to say. She parked the suitcase by the couch, kicked off her shoes, and started talking about how cozy my apartment was. Like she'd been invited, like she belonged there. I kept trying to process what was happening. We had been on one date, one, drinks at a bar, and now she was in my apartment with luggage, acting like she moved in. I told her she couldn't just show up like this, but she brushed it off. She said it was temporary, just until she got things sorted. I didn't even know what things meant. She went on about how she was between places, how she didn't vibe with her roommates, how my spot was perfect because it was close to her work. She listed reasons like she was negotiating a lease. I wanted to kick her out right then, but she was so calm about it that I second-guessed myself. Like maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she just needed a night. That night turned into 2, then 3. Every time I tried to bring it up, she'd change the subject or laugh it off. She left her toothbrush in my bathroom, her clothes in my drawers, her food in my fridge. My space shrank day by day until it didn't feel like mine anymore. Then it got worse. One afternoon, my landlord knocked on my door to talk about rent stuff. Before I could even say anything, she came bounding over, introduced herself as my live-in girlfriend, and started chatting with him like they were old friends. My landlord gave me this look, like he was confused why I hadn't mentioned her, but then shrugged and rolled with it. I stood there stunned, while she explained to him how long she'd been here and how happy we were. She said it so smoothly, like it wasn't a lie, like she rehearsed it. And now my landlord thought I had a live-in girlfriend, which made everything harder to explain later. By the end of that week, she had basically taken over. She rearranged my shelves, put her stuff in my closet, started cooking in my kitchen like it was hers. My friends came over once, and she introduced herself like she was my partner. I could see the confusion in their eyes, but no one wanted to call it out. I started losing sleep. Every night I lay there thinking about how I let it get this far. One date. That's all it was supposed to be. But somehow she had planted herself in my life like she'd always been there. The breaking point came when she started telling neighbors about us. I ran into the guy down the hall, and he casually mentioned how sweet it was that I'd settled down. I felt my stomach drop. She was building a story around me, one I had no part in. Finally, I snapped. I told her she had to leave, that this was insane, that she couldn't just move into someone's place after one date. She stared at me like I was the crazy one. And she laughed, shook her head, and said I was overthinking. It took 3 days of arguments, hiding her stuff by the door, and threatening to call a landlord before she finally rolled her suitcase out. She didn't even seem mad. She just smirked, said she'd see me around, and left. For weeks after, I kept checking over my shoulder, half expecting her to come back with that suitcase. Sometimes I thought I saw her car parked down the street, but I couldn't be sure. That was months ago, and I still can't shake the memory of standing in my apartment doorway, staring at that suitcase, realizing I wasn't dealing with a bad date anymore. I was dealing with someone who thought she'd already moved in. I thought I was going on a simple first date. Dinner, small talk, maybe dessert if it didn't get weird. That's what I signed up for. What I actually walked into was something way different. A family dinner with people I didn't even know I was about to meet. So this guy and I matched on Bumble. Nothing crazy in his profile, just some basic pictures. One with a dog, one at the gym, and some line about liking Italian food. He asked me out pretty quickly, suggested this family-style Italian restaurant downtown. I figured fine, pasta never fails. I got there first. Place smelled like garlic and breadsticks, waiters hustling back and forth, families crammed into booths. I grabbed a small table near the back and waited. He texted saying he was running a few minutes late, which didn't bother me. I ordered water, scrolled my phone, and thought nothing of it. When he walked in, I waved him over. He smiled, waved back, and then I noticed he wasn't alone. Behind him, like a parade, was his mom, his dad, and what looked like his little brother. They were all dressed like they were headed to a graduation party. His mom had pearls on, his dad wore a blazer, and the kid had a hoodie with some video game character on it. I froze. He walked right up to my table, kissed his mom on the cheek, told his dad to sit down, and pulled up a chair for his brother. Then he sat next to me like this was the most normal thing in the world. My jaw dropped. I couldn't even process it. I thought maybe they were just dropping him off. Maybe they'd leave. Nope. They picked up menus and started chatting about appetizers. His mom turned to me immediately and started asking questions. Where I lived, what my family was like, what I did for work. Rapid fire like an interview. His dad cut in with comments about how important it is to settle down young and how their family valued serious commitments. The little brother just kept staring at me, snickering whenever I stumbled over an answer. I sat there, red-faced, gripping my water glass, wondering how the hell this was happening. This wasn't a date. This was a family interrogation. When the waiter came, his mom ordered for the whole table. Platters of pasta, chicken parmesan salads, enough food to feed a reunion. His dad ordered wine for himself and then gave me this approving nod, like he was sizing me up for how mature I looked. The guy I was actually supposed to be on a date with. He barely said a word. He just smiled, chewed breadsticks, and let his parents take over. Halfway through the meal, his mom started telling me embarrassing stories about him as a kid. Stuff about wetting the bed, crying on the first day of school, and how he still called her when he was stressed. She laughed like it was endearing. I wanted to sink under the table. His dad kept steering the conversation back to future plans, where I saw myself living if I wanted kids, how many kids, what my stance was on marriage. All while twirling spaghetti like this was casual talk. The little brother chimed in too, making jokes about how his brother never gets dates, and how surprised he was that someone actually said yes. I wanted to disappear. And the worst part, he sat there smiling, nodding, acting like this was totally fine. Like dragging me into dinner with his parents and sibling on the first date was a cute surprise. I couldn't even taste my food. I was just pushing pasta around my plate while sweat dripped down my back. I kept glancing at the door, calculating if I could fake an emergency and run. But every time I thought about standing up, his mom would fire another question. His dad would lean in closer, or the little brother would snicker. By dessert, I was numb. They ordered tiramisu to share. His mom slid a fork in front of me, and I forced down 2 bites just so it would be over faster. When the check came, his dad pulled out his wallet before I even reached for mine. He paid for everything, then said something about how she passed the test. My blood ran cold. Passed the test, like I'd just gone through some bizarre family exam I didn't know I signed up for. We walked down the restaurant together, the whole family surrounding me like I'd been adopted. His mom hugged me, his dad shook my hand, and his brother muttered something about see you next time. Then they all piled into their car and drove off. He turned to me, smiling, and said he had a great night, like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just ambushed me with his parents on our very first date. I mumbled something and got into my car. My hands were shaking the whole drive home. Later that night, I've had a text from him thanking me for getting along with his family and saying they loved me. He said he couldn't wait for the next dinner, maybe at their house next time. I blocked him right then. But I'll never forget sitting at that table surrounded by strangers, realizing my first date wasn't a date at all. It was family dinner, and I was the main course. Nothing complicated, nothing crazy. But instead, I ended up standing outside a bar, humiliated, banned for something I didn't even do, while she strutted off like she'd just won some game I never signed up for. We matched on Tinder. She seemed fun, smiling in every picture, always surrounded by friends and loud, colorful group shots. One photo had her holding a drink under neon lights. Her bio said something like, love a good night out. That should have been a red flag, but I took it at face value. I thought, okay, someone who's social, easygoing, perfect for a casual first date. She suggested grabbing drinks. I figured a bar was fine. Less pressure than dinner, more relaxed than coffee. We agreed on a spot downtown, a mid-range place I'd been to before. Not too fancy, not a total dive either. The kind of place where the music is loud enough to drown out awkward pauses, but not so loud you can't talk. I got there first. The floor was sticky, the neon signs buzzing above the bar, and the bartenders moved like they had better things to do than acknowledge you. Pretty typical for a Friday night. I grabbed a booth toward the back and ordered a beer, figuring she'd show up any minute. 20 minutes later, she finally stumbled in. And when I say stumble, I mean it. Hair a little messy, cheeks flushed, eyes too bright. She didn't look tipsy. She looked like she'd already been drinking somewhere else. She slid into the booth across from me and grinned like she'd just pulled off some prank. From the second she sat down, she was loud. Not fun loud, not party loud. Just obnoxiously, everyone's gonna hear me loud. She flagged down a bartender immediately, ordered the strongest cocktail on the menu, and downed half of it in one gulp. Then she launched into a rant about her day. Something about her roommate, something about work, something about her phone bill. It all blurred together in one long stream of complaints. I tried to nod, sip my beer, follow along, but it was like being strapped into a roller coaster I hadn't agreed to ride. About 15 minutes in, she snapped her fingers at the bartender. Snapped, like we were in some 1950s movie and he was her servant. He didn't rush over, just shot her a look and kept mixing drinks. She rolled her eyes and muttered under her breath, calling him useless. I gave a nervous laugh, the kind you do when you're uncomfortable but don't know how to fix it. She took that as encouragement. When the bartender finally walked over, she leaned forward, voice dripping with sarcasm, and told him her drink wasn't strong enough. Said that ice cubes tasted weird. Accused him of short pouring her. The guy stayed calm, explained that's just how it's made, but she wouldn't let it drop. Her voice rose, sharp enough to cut through the music, pulling eyes from every corner of the bar. I froze. I didn't know whether to intervene, to apologize on her behalf, or to vanish under the table. Then she turned to me. Right, we don't sell for this, do we? The whole room seemed to pause. Every head tilted slightly, waiting to see what I'd say. My chest tightened. I stammered something neutral like, I don't know, maybe it's fine. But she'd already decided. To everyone else, it looked like I was with her, backing her up. And that's when it spiraled. She demanded another drink, free this time. The bartender refused. She slammed her glass down so hard it cracked along the rim, spilling liquor and melting ice across the counter. Conversations around us went quiet. A couple of guys at the next booth turned in their seats. The bouncer started moving toward us. Big guy, arms crossed, jaw set. I whispered to her to stop, to just let it go. But she ignored me. She spun around, pointed right at me, and announced, "He agrees with me. He knows you're ripping us off." My heart sank. She dragged me right into the center of her performance. The staff huddled together, whispering, glaring at us. I tried to wave them off, to say I wasn't involved, but it was useless. They'd seen me laughing earlier if they'd heard her say I was with her, and that was enough. The bouncer leaned down, close enough for me to smell his cologne. "You need to leap," he said. "Just me." Not her. I stared at him, stunned. I didn't. Out. Behind him, she smirked. Actually smirked. She leaned back in her seat, sipping what was left of her drink while I was being escorted out like some drunk troublemaker. The walk to the door felt endless. Every step, I could feel eyes on me. People snickering, whispering. I caught the flash of someone's phone raised, recording. My ears burned. My face felt like it was on fire. Out at the sidewalk, the door slammed behind me. The music became a muffled thump, the night air cool against my skin. I stood there, hands shaking, trying to process what had just happened. A first date had turned into public humiliation. That was the punchline. 5 minutes later, she strolled out, calm. Smiling, she tossed her hair like nothing happened. "That was funny," she said. "I can't believe they kicked us out." Us. I wanted to scream. They hadn't kicked her out. They kicked me. But I didn't say it. I just stared at her, jaw clenched, while she strutted down the street like she'd just left a party on her terms. I didn't follow. Later, my phone buzzed. A message from her. "You should have had my back more. Would have been a better night." I blocked her on the spot. Deleted the app for a week, maybe 2. But the sting didn't fade. Even now, I can still feel the heat of those stares as I was let out. The humiliation of being labeled the problem I hadn't done a damn thing. That wasn't a date. That was a trap. And I'll never forget the look on her face, the satisfied smirk of someone who got exactly what they wanted, while I was left outside, red-faced and humiliated, wondering how the hell I'd been dumb enough to show up. You ever sit across from someone and realize they're basically trying to one-up your entire life? Like, no matter what you say, they got a story that's more dramatic, more tragic, or more impressive. That was my first date. By the end of the night, I didn't even know if his name was real because nothing else coming out of his mouth felt like it was. We matched on Hinge. His profile wasn't flashy, just a couple pictures at parks, one hiking, one with a coffee. Bio said something about liking deep talks. I figured maybe he'd be thoughtful, quiet, the opposite of the usual loud, show-offy guys. We met at a cafe that stays open late. Cozy place, mismatched couches, smell of burnt espresso beans everywhere. I grabbed a latte, he ordered black coffee, and we sat near the window. At first, it was fine. A little awkward, the usual small talk. Then I told my first story. It wasn't anything dramatic, just me talking about a weekend trip I took with friends, how the car broke down, and we ended up stranded at a gas station for hours. He listened, nodded, then immediately launched into his version. His car had once broken down in the middle of nowhere, too, but he was alone that night with no signal, and he said he had to walk 10 miles barefoot to get help. Barefoot. 10 miles. I laughed at first, thinking he was exaggerating for effect. But then his face stayed serious. He doubled down, adding details about wolves howling in the distance and how he nearly froze. I brushed it off and told another story, this time about my dog getting sick last year. Before I even finished, he cut in. His dog? His dog had been run over by a truck, survived, but needed 32 stitches and months of rehab. He said he slept beside it every night like a soldier keeping watch. The pattern locked in quick. Everything I shared turned into his competition. I said I sprained my ankle once in high school. He said he shattered both legs in a skiing accident and taught himself to walk again. I said I'd been to New York once on vacation. He said he'd lived there for a year, working secretly with high-profile clients. By the third or fourth story, I realized I wasn't talking to a normal person. I was talking to a guy who treated casual conversation like a sport, and he had to win. When I mentioned my friend who finished a marathon, he claimed he ran 2 marathons with no training, just raw determination. When I said my family had a rough year financially, he said his family lost everything once in a house fire, and he personally pulled his little sister from the flames. I stared at him, trying to figure out if he was joking. But he wasn't. His tone never wavered. He spoke like every story was gospel truth, no matter how ridiculous it sounded. At one point, I tested it. I made up a tiny story about almost missing a flight. He leaned back, smiled, and said he once got stuck in an airport during a riot. A riot. According to him, people were throwing chairs, windows were smashed, and he helped calm the crowd until the police arrived. My stomach started twisting. This wasn't just lying. This was compulsive. He needed to outdo me every single time, like our words weren't valid until he made them smaller than his. The longer it went on, the darker it got. I mentioned how my grandma had been sick last year. He immediately launched into how his grandma died in his arms after giving him one final piece of advice. I couldn't even respond. I just sat there staring at my drink, feeling like I was trapped in some bizarre theater show where I wasn't allowed to leave. People around us kept glancing over, probably because his voice would rise when he got to the big moments in his stories. He wasn't embarrassed. He was thriving, like he'd been waiting on me for an audience. By the end of the night, I barely said anything. I just nodded while he told me about climbing mountains, fighting off muggers, saving strangers from car crashes, and nearly drowning 3 times in his life. It was so over the top I started to wonder if he even remembered what was real anymore. The bill came and he slapped his card down fast, like he just won the night and was rewarding himself. I muttered thanks, grabbed my bag, and got out of there as quick as I could. On the walk home, my brain wouldn't stop replaying his stories, stacking them up, realizing how none of them made sense together. The timelines didn't match. The details contradicted. But he told them all with the confidence of someone who truly believed them or needed me to believe them. Later, my phone buzzed with a text from him. Not, had fun tonight. Not, let's do this again. Just, bet you've never met anyone like me before. He wasn't wrong. That was the first and last time I ever saw him. But sometimes I think back to that night and wonder if any part of him was real, or if the person across from me was just a collection of stories designed to be bigger than mine. I don't even know how to explain this without sounding like the biggest idiot alive. I thought I was having a regular first date. Drinks, food, a little small talk, maybe some chemistry if I got lucky. Instead, I basically got ditched mid-check while she went off to party somewhere else. We matched on Tinder. Her profile wasn't anything out of the ordinary: bright smile, mirror selfies, a couple of group shots with friends. Her bio said she liked trying new bars and meeting new people, sounded harmless, even promising. I figured she'd be fun, maybe a little loud, but not terrible. We agreed on this trendy gastropub near the city center. I'd been there once or twice before. It had that polished, casual vibe, artsy neon signs on the walls, cocktails with pretentious names, burgers that cost way too much for what you got. The kind of place that looks good on Instagram but leaves you hungry afterward. I got there right on time. That's just how I am. I'd rather wait a few minutes than show up late. The place was buzzing, music low but steady, waiters weeding through tables with trays of colorful drinks. I grabbed a table near the back, ordered a beer to settle in, and waited. She walked in about 10 minutes later, and I'll admit she looked incredible. Heedle's perfect hair, makeup sharp enough to cut glass. Heads turned as she passed, and I felt a flicker of pride that she was meeting me. Except she was dressed like she was going clubbing, not grabbing a casual drink. She sat down across from me, hitting me a quick smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and immediately ordered the most expensive cocktail on the menu. No hesitation. I laughed it off, ordered something cheaper, and told myself not to overthink it. Maybe she just liked to start strong. The first stretch of the date wasn't awful. She talked a lot about herself, her job, her friends, the trip she wanted to take to Miami. I nodded, asked questions, let her roll. She was animated, almost rehearsed, like she'd told these same stories before. Every time the waitress came around, she ordered another cocktail. Fancy ones with sugar rims, glowing garnishes, extra shots. I stuck with beer. By the time our food showed up, I was on my second. She was on her fourth. I noticed her phone habits pretty early. Not just quick glances at notifications, but full-on scrolling while I was mid-sentence. Thumb flicking, screen glowing, her attention miles away. I tried not to take it personally, but the longer it went on, the clearer it became. Whoever was on her screen was more interesting than me. By the time we finished eating, I already knew this wasn't going anywhere. The vibe was off, and honestly, I just wanted to pay and leave. The waitress dropped the check, and I reached for my wallet. That's when she smiled, said she needed the bathroom, and stood up. Totally normal. People go to the bathroom after dinner. I glanced at the bill while she walked away, and my stomach dropped. Her cocktails alone were more than double what I'd spent on food and drinks. Still, I told myself I'd cover it. Not worth the awkwardness of splitting hairs over a first date. But then a couple minutes passed, then 5, then 10. I texted her, "Everything okay?" No response. I stared at the bathroom door, waiting, watching people come and go. After 15 minutes, I flagged down the waitress and asked if she'd seen my date. She shook her head, sympathy flickering in her eyes. That's when my stomach turned cold. I paid the bill, still clinging to the faint hope that she'd show up at the last second with some excuse. Maybe she'd gotten sick, maybe she was on a call, maybe she just lost track of time. But deep down I knew she wasn't coming back. As I walked out, I pulled out my phone, and that's when I saw it. A fresh story on her Instagram. A selfie. Not in the bathroom, not outside. At another bar. Neon lights glowing behind her, cocktail in hand. Big smile plastered across her face. The caption, "Best night ever." The timestamp, 3 minutes after she left the table. I froze on the sidewalk, staring at the screen. My heart pounded, blood rushing to my ears. She hadn't just ditched me. She'd lined up her next stop before the check even hit the table. I wasn't a date. I was a pit stop, a free dinner and drinks on the way to her actual night. People walked past me laughing, heading toward their own nights out, while I stood there holding my phone like an idiot. Part of me wanted to march over to the bar she was at, confront her in front of her friends. But what would I even say? Demand my money back. Beg for an explanation. No way. So I just walked home. Every step felt heavier than the last. The food sat in my stomach like a rock, the beer buzzing unpleasantly in my head, and that stupid selfie burned into my brain. I replayed the whole evening on a loop. The expensive cocktails, the constant scrolling, the way she never really looked at me. Later that night, she posted again. Same bar, different angle, now surrounded by friends. Laughing, posing, living her best night ever, like I'd never existed. I blocked her, deleted Tinder for a while, swore off first dates altogether. But the image stuck with me. That bathroom door never opening. That check on the table, heavier than it should have been. That smug little selfie, timestamped with my humiliation. That wasn't a date. That was a transaction. I was the sucker who picked up the tab. I thought I was meeting a guy for coffee. That's it. A simple first date, maybe 30 minutes of small talk, then decide if it's worth a second one. I did not expect to end up holding a screaming toddler in a cafe while strangers gave me dirty looks, wondering what kind of mom abandons her kid like that. We matched on Tinder. His profile was decent enough. A couple of outdoorsy pictures, in with a backpack on a hiking trail, and smiling next to a dog, a blurry shot that looked like it had been taken at sunset. His bio said he was into photography and looking for something real. Not a single mention of kids. Not a hint that he was a dad. When he suggested grabbing coffee on Saturday afternoon, I thought, perfect. Casual, low effort. Coffee dates are basically interviews with caffeine, short, easy, and you can bail if the vibe is wrong. I even told myself, worst case, it's a half hour of my life I'll forget by Monday. I showed up at this local cafe. The kind of place with exposed brick walls, indie music humming in the background, and that ever-present smell of slightly burnt espresso beans clinging to the air. I grabbed a table by the window, scrolling through my phone to pass the time, pretending to look relaxed. 5 minutes later, I saw him walk in, except he wasn't alone. He had a toddler with him, a little boy, maybe 2 years old, clinging to his hand and wobbling in Velcro sneakers. My stomach dropped so hard I swear I felt it hit the floor. No profile mention, no text beforehand. Just surprise, here's my kid. Before I could even process it, he walked straight up, introduced me to the boy like this was the most normal thing in the world, and plopped into the chair across from me. The toddler immediately started banging a plastic dinosaur against the table, shrieking with laughter. Heads turned. Coffee cups froze mid-sip. A woman at the next table raised her eyebrows, lips pursed. I forced a smile, trying not to let the panic show. "Hi," I said, my voice higher than usual, like I was auditioning for an after-school special. He ordered a latte for himself, a juice box for the kid, and nothing for me. The barista glanced at me, waiting, so I scrambled to add a cappuccino just so I'd have something to hide behind. The first 10 minutes were chaos. The boy climbed in and out of his chair like it was a jungle gym, knocking over sugar packets and ripping napkins to shreds. The dinosaur slammed against every surface within reach. At one point, he threw it directly at the glass window with a squeal that made everyone jump. Meanwhile, the dad barely noticed. He tried to talk to me about his photography, but every other sentence was cut short by the toddler yelling or crying. He just waved a hand vaguely at the kid and then turned back to me, like, anyway, as I was saying. All I could think was, why wouldn't you tell me? Why bring your kid to a first date? And then it got worse. Halfway through, he stood up casually, like he was just stretching, and said, "I'm gonna step outside for a smoke." My brain lagged. Oh, I assumed he'd take the boy with him. That's what any logical person would do, right? But no, he handed me the juice box, nodded like we just signed a contract, and walked out the door. I froze. The toddler blinked at me with wide, suspicious eyes and immediately started whining. I looked at the door. He'd be right back, I told myself. 2 minutes tops, 5 minutes max. But 5 minutes turned into 10, then 15. The whining turned into full-on crying, the kind that makes your ears ring. People at other tables started staring. The woman next to me whispered something to her friend and shook her head like I was the worst mom alive. My face burned. I wanted to shout, "He's not mine," but the words stuck in my throat. I tried everything. I handed the boy napkins to crumple. I gave him sugar packets to shake like maracas. I tried bouncing him gently on my lap, but he squirmed and shrieked louder. His little face turned red, snot dripping, tears streaming, while he wailed, "Daddy, Daddy," over and over. By 20 minutes, I was sweating through my shirt. My heart raced, hands trembling as I tried to soothe the child who didn't know me. I kept glancing at the door, praying he'd walk back in. By 30 minutes, I was ready to bolt. I thought about telling the barista, "This isn't my kid," and just leaving. But abandoning a screaming toddler in a cafe felt like something that would haunt me forever. So I stayed, trapped. By 45 minutes, my nerves were shot. A cappuccino sat untouched, cold. My ears buzzed from the crying. I felt like every eye in the cafe was burning into me. That's when he finally strolled back in. Calm, smiling, like he just enjoyed the most refreshing break of his life. He sat down, took a sip of his latte, and started talking again, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just been publicly humiliated, babysitting his screaming child while strangers judged me. I stared at him, stunned, clutching his decuping toddler, too angry to form words. Finally, I shoved the boy back into his arms, grabbed my bag, and stood. My legs shook as I muttered something about having to go. He barely looked up, just shrugged like it was no big deal. On the way home, my phone buzzed. A text. "Thanks for being so natural with him," it read. "I can really see you fitting into our lives." I blocked his number immediately. But I'll never forget sitting in that cafe, sweating, panicked, holding a screaming toddler while strangers gave me disgusted looks, realizing our first date had turned into unpaid babysitting duty. That wasn't a date. That was a setup. I had bad dates before. Awkward silences, mismatched expectations, even a no-show once. But none of them made me question reality like this one did. It started with her acting like the strictest vegan I'd ever met. It ended with me offering her through 5 different fast food drive-thrus, while she devoured burgers and nuggets like it was an Olympic sport. We matched on Hinge. Her profile was a shrine to plant-based living, yoga poses on the beach, colorful smoothie bowls, artsy shots of her holding green juice like it was liquid gold. Every other caption was about sustainability, energy, or treating your body like a temple. I don't judge. I'll eat anything: burgers, salads, sushi, gas station taquitos. Food is food. So I figured, okay, she's health conscious. No big deal. She suggested a trendy vegan restaurant downtown. I agreed because I didn't want to look close-minded. Plus, I thought maybe I'll find some new favorite dish. The place looked like a greenhouse crossed with an Instagram influencer's apartment. Hanging plants everywhere, wood tables polished to a glow, menu items with names like Earth's Bounty Bowl and Cosmic Mushroom Harvest. The waitress explained every dish like she was guiding us through a spiritual journey. She ordered 3 small plates: cauliflower tacos, a quinoa bowl, and a mushroom steak. I wanted the burger substitute that looked like it had been designed in a lab. She spent the whole meal talking about how clean she felt eating this way, how she could never poison her body with animal products. She used words like purity and karma between bites of quinoa. I nodded, chewed my fake burger, and told myself this was just her thing. No harm in it. By the end of dinner, I figured the night was winding down, but she suggested grabbing drinks. Sure, why not? We hit a bar nearby. Loud music, neon lights, sticky tables, the kind of place where the floor always smells faintly of spilled beer and regret. She ordered cocktails with extra shots. Downed the first one in 2 gulps. Then another, then another. Her voice got louder with each glass. At one point, she climbed onto her stool and belted out the chorus of some old pop song, fists pumping in the air. People stared. The bartender rolled his eyes. I tried to laugh it off, gently tugging her back down, but she didn't care. By midnight, she was swaying the hair in her face, giggling like a cartoon villain. She leaned across the table and slurred on starving. I assumed she meant dessert. Maybe some vegan ice cream or a slice of dairy-free cheesecake. No. She locked eyes with me, deadly serious, and said, "I need burgers and nuggets." I laughed nervously. Thought she was kidding. She wasn't. We stumbled out of the bar, and before I could suggest calling it at night, she was already punching directions into my GPS. Closest drive-thru. At the first stop, she leaned halfway out my window, shouting her order like it was a competition. Double cheeseburger, 10-piece nuggets, fries, extra sauce. She dove into the bag before I even pulled away, nuggets disappearing into her mouth like magic tricks. Grease smeared her fingers. Ketchup dripped onto the seat. I stared, slack-jawed, trying to process what was happening. "Half a nugget into silence," she said. "Next one. Spicy nuggets this time." I blinked. Another place. "Yeah," she said, licking barbecue sauce off her hand. "Let's go." Against my better judgment, I drove. Second stop. Another burger, another set of nuggets. Same routine. Food inhaled before we even left the parking lot. Wrappers tossed to the floor. She hummed happily between bites, scrolling her phone like this was just a normal Saturday night. By the third drive-thru, the smell of fried food was suffocating. Grease, salt, ketchup. It clung to my clothes, seeped into my car seats. She was in full rhythm now, calling out orders with precision, tearing open bags like she hadn't eaten in weeks. By the fourth, I was numb. My car floor was littered with paper bags, cups, half-empty sauce containers oozing onto napkins. My once-clean passenger seat looked like the aftermath of a college party. By the fifth, I was gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles hurt. She leaned back, one hand holding a burger, the other scrolling through Instagram. She was liking posts about living cruelty-free while chewing a mouthful of chicken nuggets. The contradictions were dizzying. She said, "I love living plant-based. My body's too pure for me." She said this with grease on her chin, sauce smeared on her wrist, and half a burger still in her mouth. I didn't even know how to respond anymore. I just drove in silence, my brain short-circuiting, wondering I was hallucinating. Finally, around 2 a.m., we pulled up to her apartment. She gathered the half-eaten bags like trophies, stumbled out of the car, and left the passenger door wide open. Didn't say thank you. Didn't say goodbye. Just waddled toward her building, arms full of burgers and nuggets. I waited for her to close the door, but she didn't. I leaned over and slammed it shut myself. and sat there in the parking lot staring at the trash pile she left behind. My phone buzzed 15 minutes later. A text from her. Had a great time tonight. Let's do it again soon. I didn't reply. The smell lingered in my car for days. Every time I drove past a fast food place, the memory came back. Her scarfing burgers, sauce dripping, talking about sustainability like she couldn't hear the words coming out of her own mouth. That wasn't a date. That was unpaid late-night Uber Eats delivery. I didn't think a first date could get more awkward than bad conversation or splitting a bill, but I was wrong. Try sitting in a gas station parking lot while your date's car literally gets repossessed in front of you, and then being expected to jump in and argue with a repo guy like you're his lawyer. That's my horror story. We met on Bumble. His profile was bare bones. 3 selfies, 1 obligatory gym mirror pic, and a hiking shot where he looked vaguely sweaty but proud. His bio was short and cheesy. Good vibes only. He seemed harmless. A little bland, maybe, but harmless. He asked me to grab dinner. I figured why not. The date itself was fine. Not amazing, not awful. We went to a diner, one of those places with Trom accents, red vinyl booths, and laminated menus that list 30 kinds of milkshakes. He ordered a burger with extra bacon. I ordered one too, mostly because it felt easier than flipping through 12 pages of options. Conversation was okay. He talked a lot about music, bands I'd heard of but didn't listen to, and asked me some basic questions about my jaw. He wasn't hilarious or charming, but he wasn't creepy either. If I had to rate it, I'd say solidly average. The kind of date where you think maybe there's potential if he relaxes a little on date 2. After dinner, he insisted on driving me home. Old-fashioned chivalry, he called it with a grin. I didn't exactly need a ride, but it was late and cold, so I went along with it. His car was older, but surprisingly clean. No weird smells, no junk all over the seats. Points for that. We drove for a while, chatting about TV shows, and halfway back to my place he pulled into a gas station. Just need a drink, he said. Cool, I replied, pulling out my phone. I sat in the passenger seat, scrolling while he jogged inside. That's when I noticed headlights behind us. A huge tow truck rumbled into the lot. At first, I thought nothing of it, but then it slowed and stopped directly behind us. My stomach tightened. A man in a reflective vest hopped out, carrying heavy chains. Without hesitation, he crouched by the back wheels and started hooking them under the car. I blinked. Once. Twice. My brain refused to compute. Was this really happening? By the time my date came back out, soda bottle in hand, the repo guy already had the winch set up. The look on his face when he saw it, priceless. His eyes bulged, his mouth fell open, and he broke into a panicked half-run toward the truck. Hey. Whoa, what are you doing? The repo guy barely glanced at him. Taking it. Behind on payments. His voice was flat like he'd said it 1,000 times before. My date exploded. No, you can't take my car tonight, man. Just give me a few more days. He waved his arms, nearly sloshing his soda all over. The repo guy didn't even flinch. He kept tightening the chains with calm, practiced motions. That's when my date did the worst thing imaginable. He turned to me. Me, his date of 2 hours. Can you help me talk to him? Just back me up, okay? Tell him I'll get the money. Please. I sat frozen, gripping my phone, every nerve screaming, nope. What? I stammered. This has nothing to do with me. But he wouldn't let go. He kept waving me forward, practically shoving me out of the car. Come on, you can vouch for me. Just explain I'm good for it. Vouch. For what? I didn't even know his middle name. Meanwhile, the gas station had become an audience. A couple walked out of the convenience store with armfuls of snacks, hopping to watch. A guy filling up his truck leaning down the pump, overly smirking. I felt heat creeping up my neck. The repo guy straightened up, brushing his hands off. Look, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. This car's 3 months behind. It's mine tonight. You can call the office in the morning, but it's not leaving with you. My date's face turned red. He started pacing, swearing under his breath. Then, in a burst of desperation, he tried to climb into the driver's seat while the car was literally being hooked up. The repo guy shut that down fast. Get out or I call the cops. His tone was steel. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. This wasn't just embarrassing anymore. It felt dangerous. I edged backward, wishing I could teleport home. But my date wasn't done. He kept pointing at me, voice cracking. She knows me. She can tell you I'll pay. Just give me the weekend. Man, come on. Every pair of eyes in that parking lot swung toward me. I wanted to melt into the asphalt. I don't know anything, I muttered, my voice barely audible. Didn't matter. The repo guy ignored both of us, finishing his work with methodical precision. Chains clinked, the winch whined, and slowly, painfully, the car lifted off the ground. My date just stood there, soda bottle clutched like a lifeline, watching his car get taken. When the truck finally pulled away, leaving us stranded under the harsh fluorescent lights, he let out a strangled sigh. Then he turned to me. So, could you give me a ride home? I wanted to scream, or laugh, or both. But instead, against every ounce of common sense, I nodded. I just wanted the night to be over. The drive was excruciating. He ranted the whole way about how unfair the system was, how the repo guy was out to get him, how none of it was his fault. I stared at the road, white-knuckling the wheel, counting down the minutes until I could eject him from my car. When we finally pulled up to his apartment complex, he lingered like he expected me to come inside. I forced the fakest smile of my life and muttered something about having to get up early. He sighed, muttered, "Yeah, okay," and climbed out. I drove away so fast I nearly ran a stop sign. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from him. Not an apology. Not a thank you. Just crazy night, huh? Shows you can handle pressure. I like that. I blocked him instantly. But I'll never forget the clang of those chains, the hum of the winch, and the burn of strangers' eyes on me while my date begged me to negotiate his car out of being repossessed. That wasn't a date. That was a crash course in someone else's disaster I never signed up for. I thought I was just going on a casual dinner date. Meet at a restaurant, talk about random stuff, figure out if there's chemistry. That's what I signed up for. I did not sign up for being introduced to her parents as her future husband before I even knew her middle name. We matched on Bumble. Her profile seemed normal, nothing over the top, nothing that screamed run. A couple of cute selfies, one with a golden retriever, another with friends at brunch. Her bio was short and sweet. Dog lover. Sushi addict. Looking for someone to laugh with. I figured, okay, she's into food and animals, nothing weird there. Her messages were bubbly, fast replies, lots of emojis. She suggested Italian for our first date. Italian felt safe. No silent sushi rolls, no messy wings. Just pasta, wine, and a shot at good conversation. I agreed. The restaurant she picked was one of those semi-fancy places. Dim lighting, wood accents, bottles of wine lining the walls like decorations. The kind of spot where you don't feel underdressed in jeans, but you definitely notice the tables are set with real cloth napkins. I showed up on time, maybe 5 minutes early, checked my phone twice, pretended to read the menu, tried to look casual while my nerves bounced around. She walked in a few minutes later, smiling like she'd just stepped out of a rom-com. Hair done, dressed sharp, perfume trailing behind her like a statement. I stood up, greeted her, and she slipped into the booth across from me. "So glad you made it," she said, as if there was ever a doubt. We ordered pasta for both of us, a glass of red wine each. She was animated from the start, laughing at my stupid jokes, tossing her hair, leaning in when I talked. Honestly, it felt like a solid first date. Until she leaned closer halfway through, lowered her voice, and said, "I have a fun surprise." I smiled awkwardly, fork halfway to my mouth. My brain immediately went to dessert. Maybe she pre-ordered some special cake, or tickets to a movie after. Something cute. Nope. Her fun surprise was that her parents were on their way to the restaurant. "Wait, what?" I said, laughing because I thought she was joking. She wasn't joking. She sat there grinning, eyes sparkling like this was the most exciting twist of the evening. Before I could say anything else, I saw them. Two older people walking toward us with the confidence of folks who already knew where they were going, smiling wide, waving. My stomach dropped. They slid right into the booth like it was rehearsed. Her mom scooted in beside her, her dad on my side, trapping me between the wall and his cologne. "This is him," she said proudly, sliding her hand onto mine across the table. "My future husband." I swear I almost choked on air. Future what? Her parents lit up like fireworks. Her mom grabbed my hand in both of hers, squeezing. So nice to meet you. We've been dying to know who our girl's been talking about. Talking about? We exchanged maybe 20 messages and sat through 20 minutes of pasta. Her dad leaned forward, eyes sharp, handshake firm. Thanks for taking care of her. Not every man steps up these days. My brain short-circuited. I hadn't even hugged this woman yet. And suddenly, I was being congratulated for being some kind of provider. Then came the questions. Not fun ones like, what's your favorite movie? No, full-blown interrogation. What do you do for work? How much do you make? Do you rent or own? Do your parents live nearby? Are they traditional? Do you see yourself staying in the city long term? How many kids do you want? I stammered through half answers while sweat built under my collar. I hadn't felt this cornered since my high school principal caught me skipping class. The mom beamed the whole time, already scrolling through her phone. Oh, you have to see her baby pictures. Suddenly, my screen of safety, the wine glass, was replaced by a slideshow of her daughter in diapers, covered in spaghetti, grinning with missing teeth. The dad wasn't even subtle. What kind of car do you drive? He asked, brows raised. Safe enough for kids, I hope. Kids? I was still trying to figure out her last name. Meanwhile, she sat there squeezing my hand tighter every time I shifted like I might bolt. Her smile never wavered. It was rehearsed, polished, like she'd been waiting for this exact performance. The waitress came back with more plates, clearly confused at how our two-top had doubled into a family gathering. She looked at me with pity before setting down extra silverware. Dessert rolled around, and I prayed the night was almost over, but her mom insisted I try the tiramisu. That's the cake we'll probably have at the wedding, she said with a wink. I nearly swallowed my fork. Then her dad raised his glass. To the future, he declared. Glasses clinked around me while I sat frozen, eyes darting toward the exit, mentally calculating how fast I could sprint in dress shoes. For 2 hours, I endured it. Smiled, nodded, muttered vague answers while my insides screamed. It was less a date and more a hostage situation with breadsticks. Finally, mercifully, the parents stood, hugged me like we'd been family for years, and left. Her mom kissed my cheek. Her dad slapped my back hard enough to jolt my spine. She waved them off, then turned to me with a dreamy sigh. That went so well. I muttered something about needing to wake up early, threw cash on the table, and bolted. My legs shook the whole walk to my car. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from her. They loved you. Can't wait for you to meet my cousins next time. I blocked her before my brain could even process the words. But I'll never forget sitting in that booth, sweaty hands locked in hers, strangers in the restaurant whispering, while a girl I barely knew told her parents I was her future husband. That wasn't a date. That was a trap.